Hi everyone, I'm Carole LeBlanc, the owner of Viva Vacation. Cruising is one of my favorite ways to travel, and actually I get a bit embarrassed when people ask me how many times I've cruised. So today's podcast is for cruise virgins, those of you out there who have never taken the plunge, pun intended. And for some reason, maybe you don't think you'd like cruising. Today, I'm joined by Tania Willett-Johnson, one of Viva's travel consultant, who is also a cruise lover like I am. Hi, Tania. How are you today?
Hello. Good. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. So first of all, I'll start by saying that during the pandemic, the cruise companies were the hardest hit in all of the travel industry. I honestly don't really know how they stayed afloat during that period. But the cruise lines were also some of the first companies to make it safe to travel again. And because their business is based on a lot of people on a ship, they had to make significant changes to their operations to ensure guest safety. Most cruisers were so looking forward to returning to sea that business has actually been booming for cruise lines. Tania and I have both cruised in the last year, and I don't want to speak for you, Tania, but I felt quite safe and felt that the cruise line had done a lot of changes to ensure, health and safety.
Very, and even they found ways to make it fun, like little songs or whatever, wash your hands, or it's definitely felt safe.
So Tania, let me start by asking you why you love to cruise.
I have definitely not cruised as much as you, Carole, but definitely love it. Have done it a few times, just my husband and I with kids. There's just so much you can do. It's like a mini city on the water, and you can just do as much as you want or not a lot. And you get to see so many different places in one vacation. So it's just perfect. Love it.
Couldn't agree more. For me personally, I love that I only have to unpack once for the entire cruise, but I get to see multiple cities or countries, I guess, throughout the week or for how long the cruise is. I love that after a day of visiting an island or a city that I can come back to a great meal, a show, listen to live music, get a great night's sleep, and then repeat the next morning. Yeah. So I also love, like you said, Tania, that I can choose to do nothing at all, or I can choose to do everything, even on sea days. So it's really a different experience. And like you said, it's really a city on the water. So Tania, what are some of the questions you get from clients who might have not cruised before?
It's hard to even imagine what a cruise is like when you haven't been, right? But one of the questions is like, is it all inclusive? So that's one of the questions.
So what do you tell them?
No, not necessarily, not quite, but it definitely includes a lot of things like your room, your meals, your entertainment. Some cruise lines now have packages, either alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and Wi-Fi. Some are more expensive than others. And then you can expect to pay whatever you choose, but excursions, spas, different things, games for kids or whatever. So it's really up to you how much you decide to spend more on. If not, but at least you have the basics, which are more than enough if you want to, right?
Yeah. And actually over the last few years, a few of the companies have kind of caught on to the all-inclusive things, and there's quite a few of the companies that actually promote, the drink packages or drinks and Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So it is catching on, I guess, and changing a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the questions I get is, do I have to dress up and eat with strangers in the dining room? So the answer to that one is no, not if you don't want to. Most cruise lines still have formal nights, but keep in mind that everything on the ship is kind of voluntary. If you don't like to dress up, you don't have to. If you don't want to make new friends, you don't need to do that either. So there's a lot of options for you, even on formal night. So for example, my husband and I, when we travel together, we prefer to have a table for two. And when we come into the dining room, we usually tell them that, and they accommodate that like 95% of the time. And if they can't, then we might choose another option, like go to the buffet or go for pizza or stuff like that. So there's so many options that it's.
And we have a little bit of the same, right? As I mentioned, that we've cruised with kids and not kids. So as an example, like my kids, for the first time, they did not want to go and sit at a restaurant. So you know what? Like there's a buffet almost 24 hours, almost. So those days we didn't make them dress up, but we could choose to go as my husband and I. So there's just a variety, as you mentioned, of options available.
Yeah, there's actually some cruise lines that market themselves as freestyle, meaning that it's less formal. I mean, that is their marketing strategy. So very different, and yeah, you can basically cruise the way you want to, basically.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So what's another question you get, Tania?
Is it rocky? So, and some people obviously get seasick. Actually, I'm a person that has motion sickness. I've never, knock on wood, felt it really on a ship. So normal times, you won't really know you're on a ship. As we've mentioned, it's almost like a city on water. They're so huge now, or most of them, the ships, they have state-of-the-art stabilizers that makes the sea motion almost non-existent. However, sometimes there's strong winds, so you may feel it a little bit rocking, but really, mostly you don't feel it that much. So I would definitely try it and just see how you feel about it. So
yeah, I've had a few.
Carole.
Yeah, I've also I've done a lot of cruise, like I mentioned, and only maybe a couple that were very rocky. One in particular that I remember, but the majority is you don't even know you're on a boat. You're walking. The boat is going and you don't even know. It's and the bigger the better, I guess, in that sense.
For that.
Yeah.
I haven't had an issue either.
Yeah. So talking about bigger boats, there are some people that they'll say, oh my God, that means that there's thousands of people on the ship. Won't it be overcrowded? And it can be on the bigger ships. But again, there are so many options for you. If you don't want to be in the crowds, you don't have to be in the crowds. So typically the crowds will gather around the pool and around certain types of activities or time of the day. But keep in mind that the average cruise ship has, between 15 to 18 floors, and they're about 1,000 feet in length, which is about 3 football field long. So there's always ways to get away from the crowd.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
I brought, just as an example, we brought our mom for the first time last fall, and she was afraid there was like 5,000 people on the ship, I believe, or 3,000 to 5,000. And she mentioned to me after, like, I never felt like there was more than like 100 or 200 wherever you were, right? So really, if you want to go in the crowd and have fun and party, there's definitely those opportunities or those options. But like me, I kind of like find a little space on a deck somewhere, have coffee, and there's always some place and something for everyone or every style. So.
Yeah. And if you can kind of afford or budget for the balcony does give you the extra option to have your kind of private space where you can see outside. So for those of you who can budget for that, it is an added space where you can really, chill, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go cruising now.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tania, earlier on we talked about the changes that the cruise lines have made to ensure health and safety of their guests. Can you maybe talk to us about like your last cruise? What are the things that you noticed, or what are they doing to help with that?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously during the pandemic, it's, ever evolving. I've actually cruised almost right, I'm going to say after the pandemic, a little bit more measures and all of that. But our latest one, as we mentioned, you felt very safe and all that. So, the cruise lines have done a really good job to try to prevent germs and keeping their ships clean. Also, obviously, passengers have to do their part, just like everyone. So there's never any promises when it comes to traveling anywhere. Often, the most likely places you may catch something is even on a plane. So obviously, you do your part. There's a lot of just health safety measures like hand washing, as we mentioned. But obviously, if you want to continue wearing your mask, you feel free to do so. I've seen actually, a little bit of both. So, felt very, very safe, but they have just put a lot of sanitizing measures in place just to ensure the safety of passengers. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same way on our cruise to Hawaii last summer. I really felt they did a good job. So the last question I get often is people who are not sure if they call it being stuck on a ship for a long period of time. And some of them even think they might get bored. So for this, what I would say is that by choosing an itinerary that has more stops and less sea days, this will mean that you have less time on board and you'll have more time to visit. For somebody like me who is a little bit hyperactive, that's probably the best choice. Although I will say that 1 or 2 sea days really forces me to relax and just, take time to breathe and do other things. But even on those sea days, there's so much to do on board that you can choose to do like nothing, like I said, or there's so many things to do. And of course, the bigger the ship, the better the options in terms of activities. So some of the things you can do is you can go to the gym, you can take a class, there's shopping on board, there's the spa, the casino, the pool, the sports court. You can enter a tournament, a contest, listen to live music, and that's just to name a few. And Tania, I know you have 3 boys. For the kids, it's the same thing. They've got so much to do.
Yeah, they love it. Like we've been on resorts, which I also love, but cruising, they actually really love it. So like the sports, they actually really enjoy sea days because they get to play for so long. So the sports court, as you mentioned, just the pool. So obviously you should choose, or we'd recommend that you choose a cruise line or a type of ship that kind of suits your needs and your style. If you feel like you want to, be active and have lots of stuff, then you might go for a larger ship. If you really, really want to relax, or like there's really something for everyone. So we, try to make recommendations based on that and really based on your lifestyle and what you're looking out of your cruise.
Perfect. Well, that's all for today's podcast. Thank you very much for joining me today, Tania. And for all of you out there, when you're ready to take the plunge and start cruising like the millions of us who do every year, we'll be ready for you. Remember, don't knock it until you've tried it. If you have more questions about cruising, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat or contact your Viva travel agent. Until next time, Viva Vacation!